You are now ready to move on to lesson sentence structure number 2. This means that you have already completed lesson sentence structure number 1 and have checked it off on your progress tracker and are ready to move to lesson number 2. Okay? If you have not gotten this worksheet in the place where it's located, you need to go ahead and quietly get up and go get it now. You need to have this paper titled Andrew Jackson in front of you before you start the lesson. The first thing you want to do is put your name on the paper. I have already put my name. I'm Miss Donaldson, and that's my first and last name. Okay? Then you're going to put the date. If you were starting this on Wednesday, you were going to put 4/10/13. If you are starting it on Thursday, you're going to put 4/11/13. Okay? Again, this is sentence structure lesson number 2. Okay? It is titled Andrew Jackson. First, before we start reading, I'm going to read the directions to make sure I know what to do. It says, read the first draft of the following essay, then answer each question that follows. Okay, so they're calling this a draft of an essay. That lets me know that this is in the rough draft section of the writing process, meaning it is not revised yet. So that lets me know right away I can predict I'm going to be doing some revisions. All right, let's go ahead and read Andrew Jackson by Deshawn Grave. He fought in the Revolutionary War. Andrew Jackson was only 13 years old. A British soldier took the boy prisoner. He ordered the child to clean his boots. Jackson refused. The British soldier hit him with his sword. Jackson had the scar for the rest of his life. After he was orphaned at age 14, Jackson got an uneven education. He learned law. He became an outstanding lawyer and judge in Tennessee. He served in both the U.S. Congress and Senate. Jackson became very wealthy. He built a mansion near Nashville, Tennessee. Jackson led his soldiers in a great victory over the powerful British forces during the War of 1812. He became a national hero. Common people adored Jackson. Other wealthy political leaders feared him. They worried. He would support the pioneers and self-made people like himself. Okay, now that we've read the draft, I remember from my directions that I'm supposed to then answer the questions that follow. So let's look at question number 1. Number 1, how might you improve the first 3 sentences by combining them into a compound, complex sentence? Okay. So I know that I need to look at those first 3 sentences, and I know that I need to know what a compound, complex sentence is. So I remember from my notes that a compound, complex sentence is 2 independent clauses and 1 dependent clause. Okay? So let's look at those first 3 sentences. And I already started changing some stuff, but this on your paper will be a period right here, okay? And let's read that first sentence. He fought in the Revolutionary War. Andrew Jackson was only 13 years old, period. A British soldier took the boy prisoner, period. So we have 3 sentences. We want to make that into 1 sentence, and we need 2 independent clauses and 1 dependent clause. Okay, so I want to see which 2 sentences sound very strong, and I want to keep them standing on their own. Okay, let's look at those 3 sentences. He fought in the Revolutionary War. Well, we don't know who or when, so maybe that's not the strongest sentence. Andrew Jackson was only 13 years old. Okay, so he was only 13 years old when and then we have a British soldier took the boy prisoner. So those 2 seem to be related. I bet I can put those together. So first I need to make the first sentence and the second sentence in 2 independent clauses. The easiest way to do that is by adding a semicolon. I have already done that. Please go ahead and do that now. And let's look at the next sentence. At the end of the second sentence, in order to make it a dependent clause, the third sentence, we need to add a word. So we're going to change that period at old to a comma and insert something to make a British soldier took the boy prisoner. Now, if you were listening when I was reading, I actually already said a word that goes there. If you know what that word is, go ahead and write it now. Okay, the word I used was when, right? That makes sense because we're talking about how old he was, okay? So the sentence will now read like this. He fought in the Revolutionary War. Andrew Jackson was only 13 years old when a British soldier took the boy prisoner. Go ahead and rewrite that sentence exactly how we changed it on the line under question number 1. I'm not going to do that for you because you need to be able to look at the annotation and write it below. Okay, let's look at number 2. Combine the last 2 sentences in the first paragraph into a compound sentence. Okay, so I do remember that a compound sentence is when we make when we have 2 independent clauses. Okay, and there are plenty of good ways that we can make 2 independent clauses into one sentence. Let's look at those sentences. The British soldier hit him with his sword. Jackson had the scar for the rest of his life. Okay, so we can use a semicolon, we can use a conjunction, we can use a correlative conjunction, which is either or we can use a semicolon with a conjunction such as therefore. I think the easiest way would be to use a conjunction, right? So which conjunction would work best there? Remember the acronym FANBOY, right? Fanboys. So we can use for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. Think about which one would work best there. I think the word and is going to work best there. So I'm going to go ahead and, gotta find it. Hold on. Okay. So I'm going to put a comma and insert and. So then when we rewrite the sentence, we're going to rewrite it on number 2 down here on the line. You need to rewrite these 2 sentences as one with the British soldier hit him with his sword, comma, and Jackson had the scar for the rest of his life. Okay? You are now ready. After you take a moment to write that down, if you need to pause, please do so. Once you have that down, you're ready to turn it over and look at question. Question number 3 says, read the sentence below. After he was orphaned at age 14, Jackson got an uneven education. Identify the subordinate clause and the independent clause in this sentence. So, let's look at that sentence. Remember that a subordinate clause is a dependent clause, meaning it cannot be a sentence by itself. The independent clause is a clause that can be a sentence by itself. So there are 2 clauses. First, I'm going to identify those 2 clauses. Okay? After he was orphaned at age 14, I see a comma. That tells me this is one clause. Okay? Then I see, after the comma, there's some more words. Jackson got an uneven education. Here's another clause. So these are our 2 clauses, okay? They're before and after the comma. Which one of these can be a sentence by itself? And which one is dependent on the other to be a sentence? Okay, so let's look at the first one. After he was orphaned at age 14. After he was orphaned at age 14. If I put a period there, I wouldn't know what happened after he was at the age of 14. So this is going to be my subordinate or independent clause. Okay, you need to write it down on the lines below. Okay, and identify it as a subordinate clause. That tells me that the second one is my independent clause. So let's just read it and make sure. Jackson got an uneven education. Yes, that is a complete sentence. It has a subject, Jackson, and a complete verb, got an uneven education. Excellent. So we know that that's our independent clause. So I'm just going to identify it as independent, make an arrow from independent, and you need to also write that down here. Go ahead and push pause so you have time to write it on the lines. You're going to write down the subordinate clause and the independent clause. Number 4 says, reread the passage in this section and edit corrections where appropriate. All right, so let's reread the passage and make any edits we need. We're going to come back.
Now read complete number 4 independently.
Excellent job. You are now ready to move on to the quiz. So let's first get out our tracker again. We finished lesson 2, so we want to make sure that we check off lesson number 2. The next thing on the tracker is the quiz. And I see in my example there's a score there. So I know I'm going to score myself, but first I need to take my quiz. So I'm going to go over to where those are kept and find the paper that says Sentence Structure Quiz. Now, I don't need to do a video lesson to take my quiz because I have to show what I learned from the first 2 video lessons. So, what you're going to do is complete the quiz first. Answer all the questions, okay? On this quiz, there's 5 questions, okay? So, what you want to do after that is come over, after you finish all the questions on the quiz, you're going to come back to the website. And you are going to click on, you should already be on the lessons. So we're going to go to the quiz. And now you're going to complete this form and enter all of your information. So you're going to enter your first name, your last name, your teacher, either Miss Antonsen or Miss Donaldson, what period you have English, and then if you scroll down, you can bubble in the answer that you chose by clicking on it. Then when you're done, you're going to hit submit. Once you hit submit, the answers will come up. You can come back to your paper version of the quiz and grade your answers. Now when you hit submit also, your answers that you chose are going to come to Miss Antonsen and Miss Donaldson. So we will know which ones you got wrong also. So please make sure you check yourself and mark it wrong if you got it wrong, okay? We will know how many you got right. So you're going to write down your score at the bottom of the quiz right here. And then once you have your score on your paper sheet, you can come over here. On the sentence structure. You're going to write your score in here. If you got a 4 out of 5, you would write 4 out of 5. Okay? At this point, if you got at least 80% accuracy, which is 4 out of 5, you would know that you don't have to take lesson 3. So because I don't have to take lesson 3, I'm going to cross it out like this. Okay? And this section is where Miss Donaldson or Miss Antonsen is going to show you what you earned out of all of this. Okay? After we check that you've completed 2 of these rows, that's when you will get your pass to have free computer time. All right, so let's say it's not the end of the period yet, and I just passed the quiz on sentence structure. What do I do now? Well, if I look at my progress tracker, I see that there are different lessons I can do. Then I want to look back on my computer. I'm going to just turn this home first. Okay, I'm going to look back on my computer and see which lessons number 1s are orange. Right now there aren't any orange ones because we should all still be on sentence structure. But tomorrow, in the next couple of days, more of those lessons will be orange. So if, let's say tomorrow, sequence and context clues and main ideas are orange, you get to choose which lesson cycle you're going to start next. But you're not going to go to sequence 1 and then context clues 1. You have to make sure you do all 3 in a row, just like we just completed for sentence structures. Now, some of you might ask, what do I do if I do not get a 4 out of 5 on the quiz? If I get a 3 out of 5 or a 2 out of 5 or a 1 out of 5 or a 0 out of a 5, that means that I do have to do lesson number 3, and that means on the computer, you're going to come over here and go to lesson number 3 on the sentence structures, okay, which is right here. All right, make sure you check your tracker and know where you're supposed to go next.